Well, I'm definitely not beating the furry allegations with this one. Well, I suppose there are far worse nets to be tangled up in, and it's not like it was a particularly well-kept secret anyway. Next, I suppose you'll be telling me that this isn't actually a green, mask-wearing, heliophobic hunchback. But anyway, having sent Captain Obvious on his way with a handsome tip and a snack pack for the road, let's get on about the real topic of the hour, shall we? As should hopefully be apparent to anyone who's been keeping up with my social media habits as of late, my latest point of hyperfixation has been on all things to do with the historical ninja. To briefly summarize how we got here, I read a book about ninjas, then I made a video about ninjas, then someone in the comments of that video pointed me to Gaijin Goomba's 57-part series breaking down the historicity of ninjas across all of fiction. And somewhere in all of this, I randomly decided to watch a Let's Play of the TMNT game from 2007 that I had as a kid. And all of this culminated in the production of my own TMNT-inspired world, whose working title at the time of this video's writing is Sidara Tenji, which, in my own proprietary linguistic blend, translates to all the heavens. It's still very much in the finding itself stage at the moment, but my working premise works like this. In a world where everybody's got their gods, many of which have mutually opposed morals, tenets, and virtues, and all demand that you keep unwaveringly to theirs, or else they won't claim your soul for the afterlife, the Sidara Tenji are essentially my version of chaos undivided from 40K. All of this being epitomized in the motto of the eponymous clan of ninja outcasts, Omnes Dii in Losha Suis, Omnes Kaili in Temporibus Suis, which means all the gods in their place, all the heavens in their time. And while there's far, far more to this idea that I could discuss, such as how it's set in an impossibly ancient fusion of the Starforge from KOTOR and a 40K hive city called Sahal Thorak, or the Black Lamp Route, but as it's all still very much under construction, I'll leave the rest for another time. For right now, all of this has got me thinking, which non-human animal species would make the most effective ninja clan? Now, while I'm sure you've all vocally submitted your answers before we even made it past the 1-minute mark, before we can get to that, we need to first address the flamboyant neon-pelted fursona in the room, whether or not to anthropomorphize the subject, and if yes, then by what order of degree. While on the one hand, a more humanoid morphology allows one to more readily tap into the Homo sapien tech trees and social camps, but on the other, it also destroys half the point of asking the question, since many of the non-human species' more specialized quirks form out of their uniquely non-human attributes, stances, features, etc. And besides all of that, given that both the literal and connotative quintessence of the ninja is endurance and adaptability, if we were to simply ask and answer this question straight out, then the actual human ninja would be the only obvious conclusion. Say what you will about what we've done with the place, but you can't argue that there's a few pretty big reasons why we're the ones who rule the entire Earth, with the only credible threats to us left being ourselves, while the rest are all huddling in their dens, hoping that our apocalyptic ending trigger only has the regular kill and not the kill-all command tag. So I propose a compromise, or rather a direfolk, a near-perfect hybrid of human and animal characteristics. As for what cross-tag would make a human the ideal shadow warrior, remember too that, contrary to what their modern media portrayals would have you believe, the primary role of the shinobi is not that of the Eversor, but the Calidus, and when absolutely necessary, the Vindicare. Their job is to infiltrate, to get as close to the enemy as possible, then to sit and wait for as long as necessary to gather as much intel as possible, then get out, ideally without causing any disturbance or so much as a stray eyelash behind as evidence of their having been in the region. And for this reason, I've decided the cat, while formidable in a purely adversarial role, would actually be suboptimal for a true shinobi operative due to their relatively low versatility and cunning. Which isn't to say they're not versatile or intelligent, just that they're not as versatile or intelligent as some others I could think of. But anyway, while I usually don't read these on-screen charts and text walls, since I've realized the font I used is not exactly the most ocular-friendly, especially for people who may be watching this on their phones, I figure that since I'm going to have to retype this whole spiel regardless, I may as well hit 2 nails with 1 hammer blow. So first up, we have the Ibi no Yakin, or sharp-nosed jackals. In truth, these should have been coyotes, which, though closely related, are a totally separate species from jackals. But much like how Jurassic Park called these things that are most definitely not velociraptors, because the name sounded more dangerous than did the Deinonychus or Herrerasaurus, which they actually more closely resemble, I decided to fudge the rules of taxonomy just a little bit on this occasion for the same reason. Anyway, as the on-screen text scroll says, the jackals are the main dag force of the Sidara Tenji ninja clan. The shinobi yokin are the incognito omni-tools of the Sahal Thorak, Substrata, and Stella Proxima. Their canny resemblance to their more esteemed lupine brethren allows them to pass comparatively unfettered through the eldritch megahive's monumental upper thoroughfares and mid-tiers. More pertinently, their unmatched adaptability and versatility makes them their clan's default workhorses, and as a consequence, makes theirs the plurality of the clan's populace, and thus the literal and figurative face of the clan if and when they deem it beneficial to display such a thing. In addition to all of that, their generalist mentality enables them to fulfill just about any role the clan could require with more or less equivalent competency. Consequently, Yakin can just as often be found operating in a frontline capacity as field commanders and shock troops as the more routine covert spies and overt infiltrators. Unsurprisingly, they also occupy the majority of Dag Marshal and Council Lord seats and have done more or less since the clan's inception over 800 generations prior to this writing. Secondly, we find the Gensoku no Inomusha, or stern-footed boars, the frontline warriors and, of all things, the clan's metaphysical guides and spiritual mediums, sensei. Their unmatched levels of physical brawn, constitutional resilience, and primeval aggression naturally predisposes them to primarily fill the roles of heavy shock troops and bodyguards to clan lords, dag masters, and field commanders. Of all the Daeg units, the Shinobi Inomusha make the fullest advantage of their species' omnivorousness, physical hardiness, and cunning to wage unrelenting unilateral war against the multifarious enemies of the Ninverse, whether that means laying dogged siege upon their strongholds, storming their bastilles, acting as diversion for a Karasu strike team, or defending their clan's sanctums, shrines, and dojos. The Inomusha always come fully prepared to give their lives for their Dagen clan, and they will also drag as many other souls to the hereafter as they must to fulfill their tasks. Third, we come upon the Koshin no Karasu, or high-minded ravens. Upon first impression, the gift of flight may seem a self-evident utility in the arena of intelligence gathering and covert espionage. However, when one more carefully examines the hazards of high-altitude surveillance on a Cthulian megastructure positively blooming with artificial lamps, signal dishes, and radiation mirrors, choked with miasmic clouds of climate control nanites, caked with neutronically dense layers of plebeian and patrician air traffic, and perpetually crawling with legions of automated sentries, security and maintenance drones, and sensory probes, even notwithstanding Corvid's dubious social standing in Zihal Thorak's more refined societal theaters even on the best of days, it becomes readily apparent why the Shinobi Karasu opt to specialize more in ballistic aerial blitzkrieg tactics than long-form recon operations, executing rapid-fire assaults on enemy fortifications at unsupposed times from unexpected angles, raiding and pillaging their supposedly unreachable supply depots, harassing and/or assassinating meddlesome nobles in their supposedly impregnable manor homes, or sabotaging vital infrastructure at supposedly unreachable points. All of these things fall within the purview of any erudite shinobi, but are the foremost and favored arts of the Koshin no Karasu. It should also come as no great revelation either that their superior aerial vision, and also just more formidable intellects, afford them a respected, if still often inferior, seat at the Sadara Tenji strategic table as well. Fourth, we meet the Aji no Kitsune, or keen-eared foxes. Effectively, the Shinobi Yakin's miniature understudies, the Shinobi Kitsune strike a tenuous balance between the Yakin's unrivaled versatility, the Nezumi's covert slipperiness, the Karasu's penetrative wits, and the Inomusha's stubborn tenacity. The obvious advantage in such a synergistic hybrid is a unilaterally effective splinter agent capable of penetrating far deeper into hostile territory than even most ravens would hazard to venture, capable of laying low and operating quietly from the shadows therein for as long as necessary, many times this meaning months or even years if needs be, capable of operating equally well as solo agents, as a unit within a compact Katai-ken, tight fist, pack of their fellow Kitsuna, or inflexible Yurui-ken, loose fist squads alongside members of other shinobi species, capable of performing both as in-nin and yonin infiltrators, and more than capable of both infiltrating and exfiltrating from almost any location completely undetected at their pleasure. But as with most things concerning the Tau, therein also lies their greatest limitation. For while they possess many of the combined strengths of their brethren Dags, they carry too many of their corresponding weaknesses. Being smaller and more fragile than jackals or boars makes them less reliable in open combat. Being larger than a mouse and lacking the raven's verticality means they're more easily cornered and less maneuverable when ambushed or caught out in the open alone. A scenario made all the more likely by their bright autumnal coats and musky odors. That all being said, however, their greatest asset of all lies in their eponymous asset, Even the most skillful of counterinsurgents can't completely remove their own heartbeats, and a trained shinobi kitsune can hear a leaf drop in the forest from 100 yards away, so good luck catching one while his pants are down. And now, fifth and finally, we have the Teigen no Nezumi, or many-eyed rats. Humble and unassuming, though multitudinous to the extreme point of being the most ubiquitous macroscopic life form on all of its Hal Thorak. The advantages to this being nearly so numerous as the beings themselves, though their chief is that they can scurry and scavenge about almost anywhere that's not a lordly feline or equine's bedchambers with all but completely unimpugned discretion, coming and going as they please in open sunlight without a breeze or a care, since no other beast is going to pay one of 100 million all but identical faces the faintest whiff of mind, especially when to give one so much as the time of day would be to tarnish their own highborn reputation and status within the hive's umbral matrix. But as with all things, where there is gain must come some loss, and the Nezumi's eternal price for their blatant obscurity is that should a greater predator be shown cause to suspect or inspect them in any greater detail, or should their true nature be exposed for what it really is, they would have precious few avenues of recourse other than to dive for the nearest nook or cranny and hope that some form of backup, either from a posse of their nearest kinsfolk or from one of their more overtly powerful brethren, is short in coming. As the old Shinobi Nezumi saying goes, those who burrow alone are usually buried the same. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is almost 3 whole pages more than I'd intended to devote to this subject, so I think that's where I'm going to call it a day. In case you couldn't tell, I mainly use this as a vehicle to pawn my latest bout of parapsychedelic delirium. Eventually, I may or may not try to turn it into a book or a comic or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, speaking of books, I may have mentioned on here once or twice that I have an array of published literature over on Amazon, and now, as of about 30 minutes prior to this writing, those same creative spasms are available in PDF format as a bundle set over on Patreon, which is also where you can donate $1 a month to my upkeep if you're so inclined. Eventually, I'm going to post some exclusive content over there, as well as a compendium of my unpublished works as a sort of world-building scrapbook for anyone wanting to start writing, but who maybe needs a foundation to build off of. Oh, and before I forget, given the way that YouTube is heading, it would behoove us all if you would hop over and follow me on Rumble and Odyssey. I sometimes post videos up to a week in advance over there of when they come out on YouTube if that matters to you at all. And it's free. And of course, also follow me on other social media, mainly X, and come on over to the Discord as well, assuming I remember to refresh the link. And with all that shilling finally done and dusted, to all of you who've borne with me, I give the heartiest of thanks. And until next time, my good friends, stay safe, stay sane, and always remember, si vis pacem, parabellum, peace be upon you.